Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I, of course, am your hostess with the mostest on the Wedding Dish Podcast, Sarah Alapin, and I am also the CEO of both District Bliss and Photos from the Hardy. And today, you just have me. I am coming at you with a solo episode, and today we're going to talk a little bit about engagement photography. I've been getting this question a lot recently from my clients and also from listeners, so I thought it was pretty timely, so let's dive right in. So, first question that I've been getting a lot lately is why should you do an engagement session? And there are actually several reasons that go into this. For me, the reason that we did an engagement session is that my husband is not particularly comfortable in front of the camera, and he's also not comfortable with PDA. So, having him do something in front of the camera that involved PDA prior to our wedding made him more comfortable at the wedding itself. He also had a chance to get to know the photographer. From my standpoint, it was a good chance for me to get to meet the photographer and get to discuss the vibe that I wanted in our overall pictures, have her get a sense of who we were as a couple so she would know how to interact with us on our wedding day, and how to really get the best smiles, reactions, and all those things out of us. And from my standpoint as a photographer, because of course that is my standpoint as a couple, that I just went through, that from as a photographer, it's really helpful for me to understand where there might be challenges in posing and what might look best for you in terms of how you can look natural and not forced. So sometimes I'll try a pose and it just isn't something I can tell that the couple is comfortable in. It's better to know that in advance because it's really easy to pivot. And it's easier to pivot when everyone's wearing clothing that they can move more easily in, and we have more flexibility in time and less nerviness going on. It's just really important for me to have a sense of your vibe because then I can execute the photos much more easily. There's also a level of trust that you build as a unit, the couple and the photographer. You get to really know who that person understands you. You make sure that you feel seen and heard and that your vision is heard. And you can see it physically executed in the photos. So those are all reasons that I would consider an engagement session. Now, it might not be the right fit for you, and that's absolutely fine. The other flip side on that is you might not use the photographer who's photographing your wedding for an engagement session because what if you're, for example, coming to DC and you hire me as your photographer in DC, but you've already hired, this happened recently, so we're going to use a real life example here, but you've already hired your photographer out in Northern California for your actual wedding day. And this couple happened to be coming in for a best friend's wedding, and they wanted like the classic DC photos, which happens quite often, to be honest. People really love the monuments and things, and some of those do and don't require permits regardless. We don't have to go into that today. I recommended places we didn't need permits and went through all the proper channels so they didn't have to worry about it. One of the benefits of having your photographer really know their stuff and you're in their area. But the reason that they wanted to do the engagement session, I thought was really interesting because he had never had professional photos taken and she wasn't sure he would feel comfortable in front of the camera, and they didn't care that it was a different photographer. So I thought that was kind of interesting because usually when I get those kinds of inquiries, it's related to like, we want to make sure that we are in the best situation with you on the wedding day. But this was like, they wanted something exciting and different. So it doesn't have to be your exact photographer. It just has to be someone, that you like. And then you like their style and their vibe. And that you can trust them. there's so much that went into that engagement session because we photographed at Library of Congress, which of course you have to obtain permission, but you don't need a permit, over on the Capitol grounds and in front of the Supreme Court. And there are restrictions surrounding, all of those things. And we did Summer House, the little grotto that's by the Capitol. So I kind of planned the way we would move through, especially because it was a hot day and I didn't want to have them like sweating. So I planned to bring them into places that were air conditioned and then go from like basically into like pockets of shade with a little bit of sunlight between. But knowing that you have someone that you can trust to do those things does make it easier, even if it's a different photographer, to be photographed on your wedding day, because you understand, okay, this group of people, this vendor type cares about me and I can trust them. So it just makes everything a little bit more comfortable. Also, of course, you have beautiful photos and all the things. But, from the standpoint of like, you are going to have those from your wedding anyway, these are just different. So I think, it depends on your goals and it depends on who you are. And it depends, of course, on your budget and what is offered in your photography package, because some people include it. So yeah, those are some of my pro tips surrounding that. How long should an engagement session last? Typically, at least, with the people that I know, or let me just speak for myself. What I do is I have a 45-minute package and an hour and a half package. And for my 45-minute package, I'll tell you that's really one outfit and one location. If we're doing something like what I just mentioned, where we're going into the Library of Congress, which does involve security, buzzing through there, and then and getting poses on first floor and second floor, stairs, all the things, and then photographing at the Capitol, and then moving to Summer House, which is on the Capitol grounds, but on the opposite side of the Capitol, and then the Supreme Court. That session took an hour and a half because you don't want to be running through. You're going to sweat, especially in this area. And this was in June, the second week of June. So they would have been sweating. I would have been sweating, but who cares because I'm behind the camera. They definitely would have been sweating if we had been trying to crank that out in 45 minutes. It's just too many things to cover. And especially if they had an outfit change. As it was, we cranked through because we didn't know how long security and things would take at the Library of Congress. And that's a variable. So basically, if you want to have more than one location, whether it's walking or driving, because we could have certainly driven over to the Jefferson, which is going to take 15 minutes, park there, and then walk in, just would have been fewer locations, but hour and a half still would have done it. That is going, basically multiple locations, multiple outfits. You're looking at an hour and a half is probably going to be the right fit so that you aren't rushing through. And if there is any sort of glitch where you are waiting at security or you have to wait for a giant group of tourists to get off a bus in front of the place where you're being photographed, something like that, you're able to move around it. And then it's not wasted time because you'll do other amazing photos during the additional time if there is any. So what should I wear to my engagement session? For outfits, couple things. First of all, you want your relationship, your love, your faces to be the things that are most prominent in the session. So what I mean to say by that is like, if you have some sort of really like beautiful statement necklace, this is probably not the session for that. You can certainly wear a dress or an outfit or like a dress shirt that has pattern and things, but specifically a statement necklace or can really pull focus from your face down to your chest. So you're naturally going to look at someone's face regardless of their outfit. So just, keep that in mind. The other thing is think about your body type. Wear something that you feel confident in and something that you enjoy the appearance of. So if you like the outfit, you feel comfortable in it, you feel confident, not just comfortable in it, then that will be a really good contender. The other thing you want to consider is your location. If you are, and sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. I will often help my couples pick out outfits, especially if they haven't been here. So again, my couple who I just photographed recently at the Library of Congress, they reached out and she sent me a few different dress options. And I recommended two of the three she sent me as being the top options because the other one was just a little bit more boho. And it felt like it might compete with, if you have ever seen or been in the Library of Congress, it's like a lot of columns and painted ceilings and that kind of thing. So, and it's a lot of reds, greens, golds, and also marble. So you want things that are going to work with that background and something that was kind of boho. It felt like it might get swallowed by the Library of Congress's beauty, and instead of complementing it. And I didn't want her to be the background and the Library of Congress to be the subject. So that's why I recommended that. So you can always ask your photographer. We're always happy to help. I mean, at least I'm always happy to help. Speak for yourself, Sarah. I'm always happy to help my couples with those kinds of things. In terms of, your couple vibe, if you two enjoy matching, by all means, match. If you don't like matching, think about colors that work well together. Typically, if something has like a big, bold pattern, you don't really want to dress both of you in a big, bold pattern. It does, of course, all of this depends. So I'm trying my best to not, if you have two big, bold patterns that work together, great. Typically, like it's going to compete with one another, and you don't want to have outfits that are competing with attention from your face and your relationship and each other too. So, keep that in mind. A lot of people wear, in this area, at least, a lot of people wear like some checkered kind of shirts. That's a small pattern. So you can kind of combine that with most other patterns. But, I would say, the big thing is you want to wear something that you're comfortable and confident in. And if you don't want to match, then don't match. If you want to match, match. And I would just put the outfits on and look in the mirror. And if they look good together, great. If they don't, ask the photographer. If you feel confident, you don't have to ask, but I mean, you certainly can, but, it's very much like you'll know in most cases, but if you don't, just ask. The biggest thing is that you feel confident in the attire, because if you're not, you're going to be futzing with it during the session. You're going to be trying to, like, I don't know, hide certain parts of yourself. And that's just not what you want on that day. We don't want to be hiding pieces of ourselves that we want something that accentuates the features we want to show. Um, so that's my advice on that. And then the final question that I have been getting a lot is, how do I choose my engagement location? I think you really want to go with what your vibe is as a couple. We ended up, for mine, when I was getting married, we ended up going to my photographer's farm, and we did some cool things in the grasses there. She had a creek, and so it was very like in nature. And I just wore like a navy blue dress and like flats, and it wasn't particularly boho. It was just subtle. And for us, it made sense because we were getting married in California. It had a very California vibe, like those gold grasses. But it was also sort of indistinct. It didn't scream California. So it was sharing where we were getting married, but it wasn't like in your face, because we also had that creek, and there was a little forest that we were in and that kind of thing. So she, I thought, did a really good job suggesting that. It also gave us a diverse set of backgrounds in a very small area. And it was different from our wedding, like the way our wedding looked. So even though they were both very California in their own way, they both had grass, they both had trees and things. They were very, very different. And that was important to me because I didn't want all of our photos to feel like the exact same area. Now, I do think it's really cool if you get photos done in a different location. Now, that all that to say, one, that is not necessarily budget inclusive because if you're traveling, there's going to be um, there's going to be expense associated with that. But if you're already traveling somewhere, like my Library of Congress couple, they were already traveling here. So they just used that as an excuse to get really different, really unique photos that they could then look back on later. And every time they see those movies with those classic, iconic, or TV shows with the classic, iconic DC backdrops, that they could remember those moments. And they thought that was really cool. So, I think it really depends on your vibe. For me, we don't work in politics. And frankly, I'm not interested in politics in any sort of way. It's not something I enjoy. Of course, I am active in things, but I don't enjoy like the political behind the scenes, very much DC stuff. So for me, doing like the Capitol wouldn't have made sense. It would have been beautiful, but I wouldn't have felt that level of connection with it. So think about the things that you enjoy and incorporate those into your engagement session in some way. So location wise, if you two are really like, some people really like to do their like a bar, like a speakeasy bar scene, and those can be really beautiful. I've done a bunch of those. And it's just really fun. You go at a time when it's like not necessarily open, if you can arrange it with the bar itself. And then you can get this very much like exclusive speakeasy feel. If that is your vibe, if you all are like, we love a good craft cocktail or mocktail, we love the experience of going to these kinds of places, that might be a cool backdrop for you. Finding something that just like connects part of your story that you maybe can't tell on your wedding day, but is a big part of your couple personality is really cool. So that's how I like to choose your engagement session location. And that would be my recommendation. And of course, if you all have questions about your engagement sessions and you want more answers like this, you can definitely send me a message on Instagram at the Wedding Dish Podcast. I'm happy to answer more questions. And I know a lot of this is always like, for me, it feels like I'm saying, it depends. But it's true. It does depend because not every couple is the same. Not every photographer is the same. Not every situation is the same. And I don't want to, there are no hard, fast rules in this life. And I don't want you to think that I'm telling you that you have to do something or whatever. Like, the only thing you have to do is honor yourself and like be happy in this life. That's my little 2 cents. And that's all we have time for today. So thanks so much for tuning into The Wedding Dish. I just love hanging out with you all. Go ahead and give us a follow at The Wedding Dish Podcast. We'll let you know when we have cool episodes coming up, and you can submit questions to us at any time, and I'll answer them during a solo episode, or sometimes I bring in a wedding planner or a wedding professional who can answer your questions when I am not the most experty expert in that specific space. You can find show notes and apply to be a guest and donate to us at theweddingdishpodcast.com. And don't forget to tune in next week. We have another amazing guest coming on. I'm so excited. I can't wait for you to meet them. And if you like the show, give us a follow, rate, and review. Until we meet again, cheers.